What's going on, guys? Welcome back. If you saw the last video, you'll know that we were working on a song that we recorded in an old unused school building in one of the closets upstairs. It kind of acted as a reverb chamber for us. We did vocals, guitars, drums, bass, everything in there. And now we're finally going to be taking a look at how the mixing is going to be done, see how it all comes together. You can see on the screen, I've got all of the tracks here. I have all of my drums, bass, guitar, organ, lead vocals, and background vocals. Down here we have some guide tracks. I'll probably be removing those in a little bit, but as you see, I have everything in folders. I like the folders. It helps keep everything organized, plus it gives it a little bit of a bus factor, because when you use a routing folder in Pro Tools, it makes a bus for everything to go through, a stereo bus, by the way, which is very helpful. If you're looking around on the screen, you'll see that I have a little bit of work done already. That's because I jumped the gun and I was really excited to get in, and I actually started editing a little bit. I threw some plugins on, started tweaking a couple sounds, but there's still a lot more to do. We'll go over just briefly what I have so far. On the drums, you see I have the Little Freak EQ from Softube and Empirical Labs, the Mic E Comp, which is also from the same pack as the Little Freak from the Empirical Labs and Softube team up. I really like using the CLA2A and the Q8. Just the regular QEQ from Waves is one of my favorites that I use in general, just because like you can have so many different EQ bands. You have up to 10 bands, and when you change, like say you start with the Q6 and turns out that's not enough frequencies, rather than having to add in an extra EQ plugin, you can just pull up and change it into a Q8, and it keeps the settings and everything from the previous 6, and you just get the 2 additional channels, or if you jump to 10, you get the additional 4 channels, whatever you may need. And just as you go down the line, you'll see little bits here and there of what I'm going to be using. The Q1, I just have it as a high pass to kind of get rid of the low end from the overhead, just because I'm not wanting so much low end on the overheads. I believe this one is actually the one that was sitting. This is either the one that was sitting right on top of the tom, or it's just the general overhead where I wanted to eliminate low end anyway. We'll find out whenever we get into the actual mixing. But we're going to do a little bit of a time lapse, kind of jump through. You'll get to see some of the changes I'm making, but at the very end, we'll do a run through and kind of see what was done to each channel individually. All right, so we've pretty much finished up all of our mixing, editing that I want to do. I'm really happy with how everything sounds so far. There's probably going to be a couple more little tweaks because I just haven't done any reference listens. I'm going to take a copy, go out to my car, check it out on a couple different stereos, a couple different systems, earbuds, headphones. It's something you want to do with any mix. You want to make sure that it sounds good in almost any setting, not just your studio, because your studio could be lying to you. Who knows? But I'm really happy with everything. Just so everyone knows, I wasn't just mixing this only working in the editing window. I did have the mix window on a separate monitor. I'm going to bring that over while we go through the entire mix. It'll make it a little bit easier for everyone to see what's going on. So I'm going to close all the folders down and we'll go through each folder. We're going to start with the drums. So for the drums, I didn't change much from what I had when I first started. I have the Little Freak EQ and the mic E. This is for kick 1. This is the Beta 91A. This is the one that was sitting inside the kick drum. This is supposed to be getting more of the beater than anything else. So you can see all the settings that are on that, and I'm actually going to solo that up. And we'll just start it here and give it a listen. Since this is a condenser mic, it is picking up a little bit more of the entire kind of kit, but it still sounds fantastic. It gets the beater really well. I'm not needing a ton of beater in this song just because since this is like an old school reggae, it's more going for like the thump of the kick with it all. All right, close these two. Then we're moving on to the B52. This was sitting at the sound hole itself. So I like to use the Q10, like I was talking about earlier, with being able to jump around to the different number of frequency spectrums and choices for the bands. Sorry. And I also use the CLA 2A. When it comes to 2As and 1176 and a 3A, the CLAs are like my go-to plugin for that, for compressors. Some of the most accurate ones. So for the B52, this is it soloed up. This is getting just more beef. Like that's the whole point of it behind the kick. So again, like there's not much to it. It's just adding some body to it. Without it, you would notice a difference. It's hard to tell without hearing with and without. But take a listen. Here's what it is with the Beta 91. Honestly, that's still a really good kick sound. Like I could get by with that no problem whatsoever. But we want to hear the R144. There we go. There we go. Gosh. So I ran the Lil Freak and the Mic E again on this one. You can see all the settings that I have here. You see that I like to use the presets because honestly, the presets sound fantastic. You're going to see that I use presets on a lot of these, and then I'll go in and I'll tweak them to specifically what I need because the presets will get you started in a really good place, and then you can get your final sound mixed in. And this is what the R144 sounds by itself. Remember, this is a ribbon mic. It's very similar. It's basically the middle ground between the 91A and the B52 because it's adding a lot of the body, but it has some of the punch that you need in the attack. And this is what they all sound like together. Again, that's a super solid kick sound. I'm more than happy with that. I'm ecstatic. I could use that kick sound in pretty much any genre and be happy. Moving on to the snare. The snare is basically only used for the stick hits on the side, the rim shots almost. You hear what it sounds like. It's nothing crazy, but it does sound very good. I'm really happy with it. It's got a lot of body. I didn't want to take away too much from it. I just wanted to make sure that I didn't have like any low end showing up in there. So I have the high pass on, and I used a little bit of the 2A. The 2A is one of the better compressors I've found when it comes to snares. Like I like an 1176 or a 3A can sound really good. The Little Freak has its times where it sounds really good on a snare, but I'm not wanting a super aggressive sound, so I'm not using the Little Freak a lot. And moving on to the toms, They both have basically the same compressor settings, but their EQs are going to be different. The rack tom is only heard in one place of the song, and that is at the very beginning. We didn't have anything kind of like the I don't even know what it is. It's almost like a steel drum that's at the beginning of Is This Love. So he improvised and used the toms. I was really happy with how it sounded, but this is what I'm running for it at the moment. And jump out of this, and we'll pull up the floor tom. I have a little bit more low end here on the floor tom. That might end up coming out later. It depends on how it sounds everywhere else. It's really thick tom. There's not much to it. A tom is a tom. Can't really change it. And then for the overheads, I didn't want to do too much just because there's not much that the overheads are being used for. There's only a couple instances of the cymbals actually getting hit. Where is it? There's one. Yeah, there's not much to it. I really like how these pick up cymbals, so I just did a simple high pass, and I didn't want to change too much because since it's in Glyn Johns, it's getting kind of the full kit spectrum, and I just kind of used them for flavoring. They're not like a key element that's showing up in this. The room mics picked up a little bit more of the cymbal hits when they were in there that I really liked. And then for the cymbals, I have my simple Q1 for both of the room mics. It's just the high pass here. And then I actually ended up using this 1176, and this is what I tried to use across almost every single room mic just to keep a similarity in there, some kind of steady sound. And the drums with the room mic, let me jump to the intro. And we'll jump over to one of the cymbal hits. You can hear it's got this beautiful splash to it that I did not want to mess with very much at all. And then I have the cowbell. Cowbell, again, just a basic high pass. Since it's a condenser, I didn't want it to pick up too much of what was going on around it. Again, not much to it. I didn't want to compress it either because I liked the way it sounded raw. And he kept it very steady with his hits. You notice on the panning, I have the cowbell a little bit to the left, room left and right, panned correctly, and then the overhead left and right, they're panned like that because it's Glyn John technique. So I wanted to keep it's kind of sitting to like how they are in perspective to the drums. I always mix the panning in perspective of the drummer. So like you're sitting in the car. The way I always imagine is you're sitting in the car, you're kind of air drumming, you're playing on like the steering wheel or whatever. You want to be able to hear the tom roll go from left to right because that's what most people are going to pretend to be playing. It's a stupid little thing, but I find it makes my mixes feel more lively.
Is this love? Is this love? Is this love? Is it love?